Good evening, folks. Welcome to Season 2, Episode 32 of the Town End Podcast. I don't know if it was a drab night, an exciting night, an end-to-end night. It was definitely a great night for the neutrals. We've over the last couple of weeks, we've spoken about Stephen's substitutions and the lack of defence, and we have a little lack of defence tonight, but we brought in a stalwart of the podcast, a well-known man in the Shed Side Army and the local lads up at Oriel Park. We're going to bring in David Lennon to join us tonight. Dave, how are we?
Jesus, Gally, that's a big introduction.
Oh, look, we got to go big, especially when you have that connection with the other podcast, that nationalised league of it. We got to keep you on our side. You know what I mean?
Right.
So Dave, I spotted the game. I watched the game tonight on RT. I didn't get up to the match. You were there in a wet. We'd call it a wet Oriel Park. Oh, sorry, not Oriel Park. Casey's Field. Apologies, but. What did we think? I had a different perspective maybe on it from the telly, but you were being at the game tonight. What was the atmosphere like? You know, even just the start of the game, what was it like? How to kick off?
Yeah, it was. Oh, how do I phrase it? It was a bit subdued at the beginning. I felt. I didn't think there was much of an atmosphere really. It kind of kicked in a little bit more when the rain kind of kicked in at half time, but. Overall, I thought the game itself was pretty dour. Like, I mean, other than a couple of half chances and one or two very good saves from either goalkeeper, there wasn't a whole lot to savour as a football fan. And on a night that Shamrock Rovers were playing Bows, it was a strange one that the cameras were not in Casey's Field. But hey, we'll take it.
It seemed to be like what I mentioned at the start there. We seem to have this little bit of, obviously this Shelbourne game. We don't seem to get end-to-end stuff with them. We don't seem to get away with more with them. But for the neutrals tonight, it's a great result for everybody else. Considering what's happened to Shamrock Rovers, considering Derry have won Pats, have we just run out of luck maybe at the wrong time of the season? Like you mentioned the weather. Pat Morley on the commentary seemed to think it was, an intense kind of game, plenty of chances. I don't know what game. Maybe I was watching a different match. It just seemed to be a little flat. It just seemed to be, we even when we're talking about the chances, there were probably plenty of half chances. I think that's probably the best way of putting it.
Yeah, it definitely when you were there in person, it didn't have that mad intensity that you would have anticipated. I thought Dundalk Shells, there's always a bit of bite and a few nasty challenges and bits and pieces, but there wasn't really any of that. Obviously the ref, you'll have a better idea of certain decisions. You'll have seen them in more detail than I would have. I only had the one look, but in terms of what's happening in form wise, I think obviously losing that gentleman that's gone off to Derry was massive, and I think it's had a knock-on effect across the entire back line. Thankfully, we've got the best goalkeeper in the league by a country mile, and having somebody like that certainly helps. He'll definitely win you 10, 12, 15 points a season alone in saves, but on the basis of, I think injuries are hurting us desperately with a really small squad. I know we added a couple in the window there in the summer, but I'm not sure. Obviously, losing, like, you take Patrick Hoban out of any team, they're going to lose their effectiveness, and you can see that. Like, we're very toothless up front, and that's a massive thing, and we just seem like we're running out of steam. Looking at the table, I know we'll probably discuss it later on, but I'd be a little bit worried.
Yeah, I think I remember a couple of weeks ago, obviously, not saying we lost the run for Shells, but this title race. And look, it's we're up there. I mean, consider when you compare it to last season, but we seem to get these sticky wicket games, and it seems to always occur when other teams have dropped points. I don't know whether that plays on them then going into the next set of matches, because we've had three now that's been difficult. Obviously, look, it's still a draw. It's still Fortress Oriel still alive and well, but like, like this, the stat here, just going to mention, like, it seems to be, we seem to be struggling just a little bit of, like you mentioned Pat Hooban there, for instance, that chance that falls to John Martin. I mean, yes, he's quick on it. It's, it's a mistake by the centre half. He's quick onto it, but he's not expecting it to obviously run across him. But maybe a Pat Hooban does expect stuff like that, and maybe, maybe finishes. Do you think it's just Pat that we're missing, or do you think, the Mark Connolly thing has come into it? We've mentioned, look, we're probably going to get in trouble for mentioning after so much, get royalties to it, but is it playing on everybody? Keith Ward started tonight, probably didn't have the impact that he wanted, but does it seem to be something that you hope will end tonight? Maybe that kind of mental, maybe strain after a result like that.
Yeah, I don't know. It would. No, I don't think it would be entirely based down to losing one defender. I think, there was a couple of really key chances. David Mack had a great chance near the end.
Yeah.
It was a fantastic save. I mean, there's not much more you could say about it. But obviously, Doyle was coming into a great run of form, and he was putting in good performances. And I think losing him when we did was a major kind of tripping point. But getting him back, I mean, he made a big difference when he came on tonight. So I'd certainly be looking at the positives rather than the negatives. I know we didn't score and we haven't scored in 3 games, but I think, obviously the high line thing seems to be an issue. Now, it wasn't so much an issue tonight.
Agreed, yeah.
Maybe because Shells didn't maybe have that potency up front, but I thought Dundalk managed the game well. There was certain periods where Shells were on top, but if you were picking a better team on the night with chances created, you'd probably have picked Dundalk on the basis of possession and chances, but probably you'd argue that Nathan had the bigger saves to make, which kind of contradicts everything. I thought, I'm a huge fan of Ryan O'Kane, huge fan, and it's great to have one of our own coming up and putting in stylish and strong performances. I still would love to see him as an impact sub for another couple of games. I just feel that if there's, the way when you have a couple of games in quick succession, like we've had now 3 games in 7 days effectively, or if you're going from Friday, Monday, Friday again, it takes a lot out of you. And I think, I would have loved a little bit of rotation. Obviously, the squad depth is an issue there. But I don't know. I think Stephen Bradley has taken not maybe his foot off the pedal a little bit, but I think, defenders are becoming a little bit wise to him, which is, it's not good for us.
I definitely agree with that. When he's cutting in particular, it does seem you can almost read it a little step ahead of him, can't you?
Yeah, and I think he caught a lot of people on the hop at the beginning of the year because they weren't sure what he was going to do. But I think he'll come good at the end. But I just don't think that from the back we're not offering much in attack the way we were. A couple of times there was the cross diagonal ball and stuff from whether it be Boiler or Bone or even Macari, but it wasn't reaching the men. Like, it was falling short all the time. And with other defenders that we had, whether it be, ironically, they're all with other League of Ireland clubs now, but somebody like a Daniel Cleary or even Mark Conley, like, he was able to pick, you had that quality that you knew for a quick change of play, they could land it on somebody's head 50, 60 yards away, and that seems to be lacking at the minute. Plus, you're losing your main hold-up man up front.
Yeah.
I mean, if you take that out, you're always going to be struggling. I would have liked to have seen more from Keith Ward, to be truthful with you. I mean, he's a player who's been around the league a long time and knows how it works, but it's just so wasteful on the ball. And you know, I know he's liable to come up with a stroke of genius, and more often than not, he will do that. But I thought tonight he had a chance to really get a foothold in the game against a Shells team that were, you know, they're dogged, but like you need somebody like a Keith Ward to unlock that defense. And I just felt that he didn't click for whatever reason. As I said to you, Paul Doyle did brilliant when he came on, and I thought he totally changed it.
Yeah.
And obviously having John Mountney back was great to see, and from to play as long as he did. But it was strange that Stevie put Doyle in the back four instead of putting him in the middle. It just, I don't know, there was just certain things that I thought were strange when you were trying to win a game. But obviously, look, you have two goalkeepers on the bench. You've got Brian Gartland, you know, you have David McMillan, you have Doyle, you have Runner Hauge. I'm still not sure. Like, I'd love to see more from him. I expected more from him because of the club he was coming from. Obviously, you know, I'm like every fan, you'll always give the player time, and obviously when you're coming on and bit parts, you're never really going to get a run at it. But I just would have loved to have seen just a little something different from Runner, but we didn't get that tonight. But overall, I do think that there is positives to be taken because, as you said, this time last year we could have been relegated, and now, you know, we're third in the league. Okay, we're on a bit of a slippery slope at the moment, but you know, you'd have snapped somebody's arm off if I said to you, with 7 or 8 games left, you'd be third and you're away to UCD next Friday night with a chance to get a foothold back on and get, hopefully by then, maybe have a couple of players back after injury and just a week under the belt with a break in between.
Yeah.
And obviously then there's a 2-week break then after the UCD game?
It could be actually UCD and then it's Pats, is it?
Is it UCD Pats and then a break?
Could be, yeah. I think we've 3 on the bounce and then it could be the break. Yeah, it's right. Yeah.
Right, okay. Right. So maybe the break is what we need. Maybe, you know, like going up to the Belfield Bowl isn't going to be easy on Friday night, but you know, you have to be beating the team that's bottom of the league. So
you've jinxed us now.
Yeah, I know. Unfortunately, I said it. I should listen to myself. Yeah.
I should just say, just some comments coming in. We will be doing man of the match tonight as well. Pizza. We didn't do one on Monday night. Probably we've had more exciting nights to give away a pizza. But get your man of the match in. We've had one from Bournemouth.
Hard to get man of the match in MLL, isn't it?
It is difficult. It is very difficult. We'd normally just say, look, we leave it, but the fact we can give one last at the last match, we said, look, we'll run it up the chain this night and see how we go. Just on, you know, I mentioned Pat, the commenters talking about, you know, chances of plenty, and I thought he was hearing things, and probably one of the early chance, not chances, obviously Farrell had a chance for Shell's shots on target, but Keith Ward penalty incident, you know, I don't know if you've seen the replay, you know, from the stand. Was there a lot of shout for it? You know, it definitely was a pull on the jersey. Was it enough? I'm not sure myself. To me, I want the penalty, of course. Of course, you want the penalty at Oriel Park against Shells, but it's the cliche one. You've seen them given. You know, if there's a tug on the shot, I don't know if he goes down a little bit easy for it. But I just wonder, was there a big shout from the players on the night?
I'm not so much sure of the players. There was definitely a large shout from the crowd, obviously, as you'd expect. I think if it happened anywhere else in the pitch, it's going to be given as a free.
Yeah.
So on that basis, you'd have to say it was a penalty. Now, I do believe the Shells probably should have had one at the other end as well. If you're you know, playing like with like. So on the basis of consistency, I'll say the referee was consistently rubbish. But like he was given free kicks to Dundalk in the second half for stuff that, you know, wasn't it? It didn't even seem like free kicks. You know, they were very soft. And like I said to a couple of the people beside me, I was like, well, you know, if that happened in the box, he's not giving it. So why is he giving it outside? Like it just seemed like a cop out, you know.
Yeah, and once you start on that road, we see it every week with referees, and you see it everywhere, Premier League, local football. Once they start giving free kicks for that, it's hard to stop. It snowballs, because once you blow it up for something like that, you've got to blow it up for all of them, haven't you?
Yeah, that's it. And like that's why I thought, well, look, I do think that had he have given the Dundalk one and potentially a red card, now you'll have a better idea, was your man the last man for that opportunity?
Well, that would Gavin Malloy, that was the next I was going to come on. That was just before half time. For me, I think it's a yellow. However, when you look at Dara Leahy from last week and they give a red for that at the halfway line, it's hard to see why, you know, if he runs another 5 yards with the ball, he's in on top of the keeper. So it's hard to see why a red card wasn't given. But I would agree with a yellow, but not going by last week. Like you just mentioned, the consistency of referees being consistently rubbish. If you judge it on last week's Dara Leahy one, to me that has to be a red card tonight. Now you debate the defender, but that's all assumption. Like, I mean, the referee must have assumed last week that Andy Boyle and Lewis McCarry wouldn't have caught the striker going in on goal from 45 yards away. And I'm all for this benefit to the striker. I get it, but if you're talking about last week's match, I totally agree with the yellow tonight. But I don't see why at the same time Dara Leahy's a red from the halfway line, and yet this is on the 18-yard box. It just inside. Now it's arguable. It's, you know, it's the same with the Keith Ward. It's a quick decision. Keith Ward actually starts from outside the box, and this kind of kicks off early as well. But for me, there's no reason why it's not a red. But I just thought that, you know, we'll have an expert coming on now here in a minute. He's going to tell us exactly what he thinks of it. But for me, if you're being consistent with Dara Leahy's for next week, for last week, I don't see why, you know, maybe it's different. You know, maybe if you're at the match, I'm usually in the stand myself, so maybe it would have been a better match. But for me, I understand the yellow, but I don't see why a red wasn't given. Yeah, I might have been different in the stand.
Yeah, well, the only thing that I could possibly think of for the Dara Leahy one was, did he give the yellow card for falling and being last man, and did he give a yellow for him catching the ball after he'd fallen? Like there was a touch of cynicism maybe with landing on the ball and holding it. So I just wonder, was the straight red in? Would he have given a red card had the ball have maybe went in the opposite direction rather than Leahy kind of landing on it? I'm not sure about. But look, you know, obviously you had a better view of it than me.
To split the, we're going to evolve to split it to make it a nice. I don't want to use the word threesome, but we'll bring in a man that will definitely have an opinion on it. James Rogers, how are we?
Hey lads, how's things?
So we were just talking about the penalty incident on Keith Ward, whether that's a penalty, and then we're talking about the Gavin Malloy incident just before half time. I don't know what was like in the stand or what you felt for it, but all I'm basing it off is Dara Leahy from last week. So, you know, I'd like to get your own opinion on just from where you were at the match.
Yeah, the Ward one penalty. He pulls him back. I think the way the game was being reffed for me as well. Like sometimes you see referees trying to let things go. I thought Paul McLaughlin was very fussy tonight at times. A lot of free kicks given for willy-nilly, and I think if you're refereeing a game like that, I think, you know, clear tug of the shirt in the box, it's a foul. I think if that happens on the halfway line, I think he'd give it. So because it happens in the box, how do you not give it? I thought the occasion maybe got to him a little bit tonight. I think he tried to play it safe because it's on TV or on the focus, and I think he just tried to be uncontroversial. You know, Damien Duff had made comments prior to the game, I think, and sometimes that can get into a referee's head about, you know, how he felt decisions in the last game in Oriel had gone against his side. And I think the mind game sort of worked to a certain extent, because again, with the Gavin Malloy one, like again, from my angle, you have a great view of a wide angle of the pitch. I'm not saying John Martin would have scored, but no one can convince me that he wouldn't have got a shot off. Therefore, it's a goal scoring opportunity, and Malloy has to go. And we've paid the price for that ourselves in recent weeks. Obviously, Darragh Leahy, as you mentioned there, in Sligo, which was much further away. But even you think back to, say, Andy Boyle in Bowes, where it was innocuous enough. I don't think he necessarily meant to foul Ethan Varian that night, but he was last man and had to go. And you get either or both of them, it's a very different game, and you're probably, 3 points up right now, but it wasn't to be. And I thought, look, he was weak for me the whole game. I thought, Shane Farrell went down in our box in the second half under I don't know, Ryan O'Kane ran alongside him, I think. No yellow card. And equally, just so it's not all one-sided, I thought Joe Adams went down in their box. It was a clear dive as well, and, no repercussion. So I thought Paul McLaughlin, I just thought the occasion got to him. I think because it was on TV, I think if that's not on TV, I think he makes the right decision. I think he tried to play it safe, and in doing so, he made a hames of it.
I think, it's... I mentioned David at the start of the show. Are we just coming into, just to go back to the actual result and the performance, with everything else that's happened tonight, with Rovers, with Derry, Pats, are we just running at that little bit of luck that we had early in the season, where we had this kind of quote unquote title race? Not like we're still there. Look, I mean, like David said, you'd bite your arm off for this position at the start of the season. But has it just become a bit of a blip, I suppose? That's probably the best way of putting it, not to be cliche about
it. Look, it's a blip, but to be fair, it's only 3 league games ago we were going to Tala and we were talking about potentially winning leagues. So I think you can over egg these things too. I think, look, we've been very unlucky with the players you've lost. Like, you take out, Patrick Hooban, 10 goals, Daniel Kelly, 6 goals, like even Paul Doyle, and I know he came off the bench today. He's been a bit of he's been your main defensive midfielder, and obviously we've been leaking a few more chances and a few more goals. And look, you can point to the defence, and obviously so, but you take Shieldsy out of a Dundalk team back in the day, or I suppose Kante is the stereotypical player, if you look across the water, who does that sort of role. And of course, you're going to give up more chances. So it's been a combination of all those sort of little things that, I think was our top scorer on the pitch tonight, Stephen Bradley, who, and I don't say this disrespectfully, I think he scored in 3 matches for us. I know he's 5 goals, but you're just wondering where they're coming from. You've John Martin leading the line now. I know he hasn't got many starts, but it's only 2 goals in a Dundalk shirt. It's a lot to make up when you're losing the sort of the quality of a Hooban, Daniel Kelly, and others that we're pretty threadbare right now. But the one thing I will say, and look, we're all obviously disappointed we didn't get the win, but I think it arrested some of the other stuff in terms of, I think everyone was talking about the high line and about, us defensively and stuff. And maybe a clean sheet's the best answer for that, So it's a blow tonight. It has to go down as drop points, and particularly with Pats and Derry winning. But at the same time, look, you need to go to UCD next week now and just sort of get back on the horse, so to speak.
Yeah, I suppose, look, you're obviously coming on. We're coming on straight after the show. This is probably the drawback to having live shows straight after a game, where you're a little bit frustrated and watching it. But we're still unbeaten, it's still unbeaten at home record. I was just looking at the table. We've drawn so many games. I think is that 11 tonight or 12, is it? Yeah. Whereas like Rovers have 5. That's kind of your difference coming into the start of the season. And I suppose that's where the frustration comes from ourselves. And look, people are probably sick of listening to us every Friday night on Monday evening. But just on the second half, we spoke about John Martin's chance, whether it fell to Pat Hoban in the first half, the one that came across the box from the defender. But the second half kind of, I don't know how you felt in that game. I wasn't at the match. I was watching on RT, but it just felt like it just from a mediocre first half level, it just seemed to drop. Now, I don't know what the atmosphere was like, but they just seemed to run out of ideas. I don't know if that came across in the game, or maybe it was just on the telly. But David had mentioned Keith Ward, started. Ryan O'Kane the lads were waxing lyrical about it on the commentary. Some excellent runs, run a hog came on, done a bit, I suppose, but it just seemed to be a little bit of the void of, any real. I suppose we're missing a Pat Hoogan, really, aren't we, Reggie? It's that kind of player dropping in deep and giving us that option, but it just seemed to be a little bit flat. No, that's on the telly. Now it could be different in the stand.
I thought we did a lot right too, and it's one of them. McMillan takes his chance at the end, and our Mountney's header goes in, and you're not having these conversations.
Yeah.
Like we did have the chances. Obviously, that John Martin one in the first half too was sort of gilt edged. You get a pen, in a parallel universe somewhere we're winning 3-0 tonight, But unfortunately, we don't live there right now. But it is hard. I thought there was, again, Hooban gives you so much, even if he's not scoring the goals himself, the ability for people to run off him. And, another player missing tonight was Robbie Benson, who's probably one of the best in the league at that in terms of running off him. And it's tough when you factor in, if you look at the sort of the front end of your pitch to finish the game tonight, like McMillan, he's had very few chances this season. Ryan O'Kane's only playing his first ever start in Oriel Park. You've Runer on the other wing at the end, who's only again played a handful of games for the club. Alfie Lewis trying to pull the strings. It's new, and we've gone from, and I'm not being critical of any of them, but we've gone from this really settled unit that you could nearly, with the odd change here and there, you could probably say, well, that's the Dundalk team tonight with Kelly on the left, Bradley on the right, Hooban through the middle with maybe Benson off him or something. It's by accident or design, it's got to a point where you're down all them, and it's been a big change. And again, you always want more as fans, but I think we did have the chances. It just, unfortunately, a bigger concern to me is we basically, we may as well scratch the first half every time. We just don't, today was I think it's the 18th time we haven't scored in the first half of a match this season. It's
like that stat itself, that's an incredible stat. That's considering, that's I didn't actually realize that's a mental stat to throw out, isn't it?
Yeah, so we've scored 44 goals this season. Only 15 have been in the first half of matches. So it's basically a third to a two-third. Now, maybe you should argue you should be scoring more in the second half. It's a compliment to your fitness and your persistence in that. But we're basically a non-entity when it comes to scoring in first halves of games. So, I mean, that's a concern, and I don't know how they address that. Maybe they're too cautious. Shells did actually start probably on top tonight. Maybe first 25 minutes or so they were looking the more likely, and then we did grow into it. And look, a few decisions maybe went against us before the break, and obviously that Martin chance. But I mean, if it was just a one-off and you're just assessing it on tonight, to be we won't read too much into that. But as I say, it's become such a common occurrence now. We just we don't seem to score in the first half of games. We don't see we get very few early goals in games. Bar possible exception was the Finn Harps game, where I think we were 2-0 up after about 6 minutes or something. But that's few and far between, really. And particularly teams coming to Oriel Park, where we've such a good record, I think the longer it goes on, it gives them something to hold on to. Whereas, because most teams coming to Oriel Park are looking at their record. I'm sure if you had a set of Shells before the game tonight, would you take a 0-0? They probably would have, So it's one of those that I think you need to be more forceful, because if, say, you do get that John Martin goal, they have to come at you a bit more, and we do have the players on the break who can punish a team. We've always been a sort of decent counter-attacking side, and we can soak up a bit of pressure and go for the second then or the third or whatever. We're just very rarely getting into that position.
Yeah, Reggie, you mentioned, I get Dave's. If we mentioned a couple of weeks on the podcast, how I don't want to go back on with the Mark Connolly, but we had mentioned a couple of weeks ago the likes of Mark Hanratty leaving David and Anima Sahoon. Do you think that was, obviously their lack of game time, would have kind of hindered him over the season? But do you think we could be ruined that kind of, I thought Mayo in particular was going to be a bit of a sensation this season. I thought under Stevie, but he just seemed to not get that run of games. Do you think now, look, at hindsight's great, but you think a little bit of foresight on the lads' part with the potential of Mark leaving, or I mentioned last week that maybe Connolly's have even completely caught everybody off guard at the last minute. But do you think maybe players like that probably, or even one of them, could have been kept on just as that option that we don't have to put Paul Doyle back into the defence as he was?
Yeah.
Hindsight, of course, is fantastic.
Yeah, it is. And, in what you're saying, you're arguably spot on. I'm not sure whether I believe Hanratty had a great game the other night against, was it Shamrock Rovers?
Yeah.
He was playing. He had a great game, but I don't know. I have no problem with them going out and getting game time, because I think it'll stand to them in the long term. I think right here and right now, I don't think you can have foresight and seeing Darragh Lee been out for 3 matches, or injuries happening at random parts, like Paul Doyle. Like he was critical to the defensive setup. So to answer your question, I have no problem with them going out on loan at all. I mean, obviously, you would have liked to have held on to maybe one of them with hindsight, but I mean, ultimately, you take the gamble, and at the moment, it's not paying off. But like, I think defensively, I thought we were relatively solid tonight. Like, there was maybe one or two. I think Sam Bone had a chance where he cynically took down. I don't know who it was. It was hard to see from the angle where I was, but he got a yellow card for it. I think he just stepped across. He had to take him down. But other than that, I thought we were quite strong, and the high line wasn't as, what's the word I'm looking for? What wasn't as obvious as it had been against Sligo or against Wexford. But I think something that you said, James, there, I think tonight was the reason the frustration is so palpable tonight is because of the last 3 games. I think, obviously losing to Shamrock Rovers in how we did is always going to be painful. And I think the performance in Wexford wasn't. We were lucky, to put it nicely, and getting that result obviously was great, but you're not putting in the performance to warrant the praise. And then you go away to Sligo on Monday night, and you have another terrible game. And ultimately, the game was decided in the sending off, but tonight was a chance to really show that you're hungry for it again. You're ready to bounce back, and there just didn't seem to be that zip. I thought the rain was a blessing at halftime. I said the pitch looked a bit slow and dry. I thought that rain is really going to help zip it around, but they just seemed to lack ideas more than anything.
Yeah, it's just interesting about the pitch. When I turned on the game tonight, the pitch seemed to be very. It seemed to be. It was obviously it's not, but it was just like it was re-sodded tonight. Do you know that kind of way? If you were talking about an actual pitch, it seemed to be very heavy, Reggie. I don't know if that was it.
There was additional rubber by the looks of it put down, so right. It was very like I come in and admittedly it's a while since we were there, but definitely there was more rubber on it than before. So they've obviously had to put rubber down because it looked. I don't know what it looked like on TV, but it was very like dark. There was very dark black patches, particularly down the wings, and there was one kind of outside the sort of Carrick Road end where it was like, I don't know, a crop circle of just black. So I don't know whether it was a case of that they did it or maybe it had been rolled or something, but it was very visible. There was something different about it. I don't think that necessarily cost us tonight, but look, the reality is you're just struggling for goals. I mean, if you take the Wexford game out of it, like since we last played at home when Hooban got the late equaliser against Derry, we haven't scored a league goal. Like, outside of like the winner in Bowes was technically an own goal. Like I know John Martin might try and claim it, but it went down as a Ty Ryan own goal. It was a freak, and it's a very simple game. But like you don't score, you don't win, and we're just struggling to do that at the moment. So it's a concern. Like we need Hooben back quick. But
you any idea, James, when that might be?
Just got in before me, David. I was just going to ask the same question.
Yeah, look, I know he's doing all he can in terms of trying to, but it's an awkward one because you don't want to risk a player, and he's out for longer. We did speak to Stephen O'Donnell after the game, and while he didn't name names, like he did say he's hopeful of having more back for next week. Which, look, if you slowly get them back, like I think we're good enough when we're full strength to kick on again. It's just been an awkward run. Like even tonight, like you lose Robbie McCourt and Robbie Benson were on the bench up in Sligo, and they're not tonight. Okay, Paul Doyle come back, and but like they're having to Greg Sloggett playing left back, then over to right back, Paul Doyle coming on at left back. It's not ideal. Like and look, they didn't do badly in those positions, but it's not their natural roles. So look, Darrell Leahy'll be back next week too, so it gives you a bit maybe more balance in terms of your defence as well. So I think I've seen a comment go up there a few minutes ago. I think look, you just kind of need to ride this wave and get through it. And as much as we're disappointed tonight, maybe steadying the ship with a draw in terms of like not conceding.
Yeah.
It's something, because I think the big focus had been on obviously the defence, and again, if you look at it, we've only conceded 7 goals in Oriel Park all season, and we conceded 8 goals last month. If you look at August, so we've been shipping an uncharacteristically high amount of goals and chances on top of that. Because I think, look, anyone who was in Wexford last week, they scored 2, but I think but for Nathan Shepherd, it could have been 5 or 6. So it wasn't like that tonight. Yeah, Shells had their chances, but you'd expect that. But there was none I thought were, glaringly, bad misses or anything. Like they were simple enough in the end for Dundalk. I think if that was a boxing match, I think there was only one winner tonight in terms of the quality of the chances. But look, I do think it's a case of, on paper, I know we didn't win there already this season, but like you're going to the bottom side in the league. I know our away record isn't great, but it's probably
don't say
the one.
James, I already said it.
But look, we're not. Look, our away record is such we can't take anyone for granted, and look, the Wexford game showed that, if anything, But even the cup draw, Waterford away, you're thinking, well, bear in mind it was them, Derry or Rovers, the way the draw was panning out, it was the one you'd take. But you can't take anyone for granted the way our away form is. But we've only 10 goals away from home all season in terms of the league. So and Hooben is half of them. So it's a concern. I don't know how they address it. Like maybe they need to be a bit more adventurous or something in terms of their attacking play. But yeah, I could see the argument for the lack of ideas, and maybe they're just so used to playing with him because he's almost like 2 players, because he's like a 9 and a 10 and 1. He's a threat, and he's also one of your top playmakers. And with all due respect to McMillan and Martin, they're not in his league when it comes to doing the dual role. And I think it's been pivotal to the team, like in terms of the contribution he's made.
Yeah, I think there's probably I think there's not a podcast was why when we don't mention Pat Hooben. It was almost like he's taken over from Chris Shields when it comes to last season before he went to Linfield. But we had mentioned before, like you said, and he is a 9 and 10. He's so vital, and it's not only when he's missing. It's when you see nights like that, like the Martin chance, the McMillan chance. If they fall to Pat Hooben, you're expecting. Pat Hooben plays tonight. He probably hits Shells for 2 himself. It just needed that figurehead up front, didn't it? It just seemed to lack that little bit. And look, on other areas as well. But when Pat Hooben's missing, like Reggie, like you said, James, it's like missing 2 players.
Yeah, and you look at Shells tonight. They went home with a clean sheet, but both centre halves were shaky at times. Like Luke Byrne could have given away a penalty. Gavin Malloy probably could have been sent off. It was Gavin Malloy who had the loose pass that John Martin should have scored from. And again, Hooben works them harder because you're in for a game when it's him, and he just his ability to bring others into play, get you up the field, all that. He's the best in the league at it. Like I know we're obviously all biased, but he really is a pivotal pivotal player. But it's just, look, you take key men out of a lot of teams and they'll suffer. And unfortunately, it's coincided with like losing, 3 or 4 others as well that are crucial to you. Like Paul Doyle's done very well, probably more under the radar this year. Obviously, Daniel Kelly's your second highest scorer and can chip in with assists as well. He's always a threat, and he's also someone you can play through the middle if needs be, because he's got that pace. But just they all kind of came at the one time, whereas I think it is a small squad. You can maybe deal with a couple. And it's resulted in, and not that he's done badly by any stretch, but it's resulted in maybe John Mountney being rushed back sooner than maybe they would have hoped, I think he was substituted tonight just purely because I don't think he had 90 in him, but it's a great player to have back at your disposal. And if you can get Gartland back as well, there's effectively 2 new signings heading into the end of the year, because we basically haven't had either of them for the year.
Yeah, it seems to be. You're right. Like you forget almost the players, even though we've had so many. You forget the players that still have to come in, and you got someone like Brian Gartland sitting on the bench. It's even mad to think you would have him sitting on the bench so long. I mean, we kind of didn't know if he's going to be signing, and he's injured, and look, it is one of them. But as we're talking about, individual players, I'm going to put you on the spot. It is a kind of slightly shortened show tonight because we brought in new substitutes, and we're talking about Stephen O'Donnell substitutions. So, Dave, I'm going to hit you on first for your man of the match, just to see if we can give someone a Tony's Pizzeria for the Friday night. Okay,
well, I'm between 2. I do. It's a toss-up. I think had Shells have scored early, we could have been in trouble. And then Ryan O'Kane was very, very attacking. I'm going to go with Nathan Shepherd, though. I think the couple of saves he made were just at the right time. It gave us a bit of a foothold, and if with a bit of luck, we might have put one of them into the net between the one that hit the crossbar and Davy Mack's chance at the end. So I think, if a goal goes in one end, it could have been a very different game. So I'll put it down to that.
Nathan Shepherd, that's 1 to Sheps. Reggie, we're going to make it.
I think I'll go with O'Kane. I was. Do you know what? I was happy for the defence tonight. They've probably taken, including the goalkeeper. Well, actually, Nathan hasn't probably taken as much flack because I don't think he's done anything necessarily wrong. But and he did do well, and I think the back 4 did well, and they deserve credit for that. But I just thought O'Kane, his first start in Oriel, I think he was the most likely route for a long time of, whenever he got at players, down that side, he was beating them. He got a few shots off. Okay, Brendan Clark was equal to them, but I just thought, given the occasion, first game at Oriel Park, from the start for him, being the hometown player, I thought it was lively because, you mentioned the likes of Mark Hanratty there a while ago, and Mark left ultimately because he wasn't getting game time, and like it would have been very easy for Ryan maybe at a certain point this season to say, lads, this isn't working. I want to play. I'm off. Yeah. But he stuck it out. Okay, you get a bit of luck with injuries, but he's now becoming a pivotal player. Can't say that word tonight for some reason. But he is like he's like you're looking ahead to next week, and he's one of the first names on the team sheet, I'd say. And I just think that overall progression, sometimes it's hard for young players. You want it all very quickly and all that. He's gone away and put in like the hard yards off the field and everything, and that's another milestone for him tonight. I was chatting to him afterwards. He went home with a nice little ornament from, I presume it was RTE for the Man of the Match award, and it's another sort of little milestone for him. Last Friday he got his first goal. Today he got his first start and probably his first man in the match for the club. And I just think it's great to see, because we've probably been crying out for a homegrown hero for a long time. Like I was looking it up earlier today. It's over 9 years since a Dundalk lad actually scored a league goal for Dundalk. Okay, that's still ongoing, but I think it's only sooner rather than later before he ends that.
Yeah, he's been. I know I probably got ahead of myself last year talking about him, and I've obviously with pre-season games that he had in particular against Bows. I thought he would get more of a chance at it. But then maybe that year, with Stevie coming in, has been excellent for him. But I'd have to agree with Reggie on this one. I understand completely, David, with the Nathan Shepherd. I mean, it's rare he has a bad game. Like, the dog had to be really poor for Sheps to not have a great one. But I probably robbed Ryan O'Kane from man of the match a couple of weeks ago. And I think I gave it to Paul Doyle instead. So I can't, after waxing lyrical about him for 12 months, I can't bypass him again. Now, you have the unenviable task, lads, of picking because there's a bit of bias on me, so I can't pick the winner tonight. So it's either going to be, we've got two in for Ryan O'Kane. We have Brona Bootman or Ryan Gorman. So you have to pick. So if you want to pick, Dave, since you run the show first, I'll let you pick between Brona Bootman and Ryan Gorman for the pizza.
Jesus, that's serious.
Because there's a bit of bias from one of them on mine, so I don't want to be giving away pizza to people that I know.
Okay, well, I don't know either of them, so I'll go with the second one, whoever you said.
Ryan Gorman, is it?
I think was that who you said the second one was?
There we go, yeah, perfect,
right.
Yeah. So Ryan Gorman, Tony's Pizzeria, give him a shout, buy some chips, Coke, top it up, spend as much money as you can. Well done, Ryan, good man. Just obviously it's going to be it's a little shorter show, but just before we go, and just something off the field tonight, and Reggie, you would have wrote something on this probably during the week and stuff. The renaming of, obviously after Des Casey passed away, the renaming of the pitch and the field. It's I don't want to use the word surprising. It probably wasn't something that I was expecting to see myself on social media, but it's a nice touch, isn't it? It's something a little bit different. Like, I don't know if it's ever been done before, for a short period in the league up until the end of the season. But just your thoughts on that, and a nice touch from the club.
Yeah, no, it was. Look, the Casey family and even his dad, PJ, before him, like, where would we be without them, Like, I know Oriel has its flaws, but like, going back to even when the club first moved into it, like, it was PJ was involved with the FAI at that stage and used leverage to get loans to help with the development of it at that stage to bring it up to the standard of the day. And to be fair, I think the family, including Des, when he took over in 1961, he was, so supportive of anything that went on. Okay, like, they were never going to build a stand for the club themselves, but like, they've basically given them a ground there or land that they can do whatever they want with, So only for them, it was originally called Casey's Field back in the day, and that's I suppose the origins of it. And it was somewhat ironic that Des passed away on the 23rd of August, and that was the 86th anniversary of the first ever game in Oriel Park that Dundalk played against Cork, and he would have been 5 at the time. So given the occasion it was for the family, I'm sure he was there. So I know I went to the funeral last Friday, and his daughter Anne spoke very well about how much it meant for the family. I think that his son Porrick, who was in Sligo the other night, again, I think was tweeting about it as well. So it meant a lot to them. And having had the pleasure to speak to Des a few times, I know he always wanted to see Oriel develop. That was his ultimate dream, and I think it's what most of us want. And I think if it ever happens, it would be a great sort of legacy to him and his family. And maybe one day there can be a Des Casey stand or whatever. But for now, I just thought it was a nice way to remember him. And as a goalkeeper in his day, who I think he won a minor championship with the Young Irelands and played in Croke Park for the CBS and stuff like that. I think he'd be the only man happy with a 0-0 tonight on a ground name after him. So but it's a lovely tribute, and I think it's a nice touch by the club. Again, getting back to the roots, and just on that, just to mention I suppose the two initiatives they sort of announced this week. Obviously, the mental health one, which I know you guys have done a special show on with Pingu and Shane Taft, but even the survey as well, which is part of the process of moving forward and getting ideas, and so it's all looking up compared to, you think, where we were this time last year, I suppose. But look, again, a lovely touch to a great man.
Yeah, absolutely. David,
just before we finish up, I was having a little look at the league table, and it's going to be an interesting one. Like, how important is the cup potentially going to be to whether or not Dundalk get Europe? If things continue on the trajectory that they're going, with Derry and Rovers playing each other, one of them will go out, and Pat's already out. All of a sudden, it could be a big step. What do you guys think?
Yeah, like the threat here for me is Shells and Bows. They obviously play each other, so one of them is going through. I think whoever gets, and look, you don't want to be presumptive of things, but like whoever gets the winner of UCD and Treaty will probably fancy their chances of being in a final. If it's one of them, they're 90 minutes away from. I don't think either of them think it's too much for either of them to qualify through the league. But if one of them, it really throws the cat among the pigeons. We've been so used to, I suppose, fourth place getting Europe, but I mean, if there's a surprise cup winner, like say Bows or Shells or even Treaty or Waterford or something win the cup, it's it puts fourth place in no man's land in terms of Europe. So I think the one I'm sort of to be in my bonnet at the moment is that sort of Pat's Shells game that didn't go ahead because at the moment Pats of a game in hand over us, and that could be pivotal. Jeez, I can't say that tonight. But the like in terms of the they didn't fulfill the fixture. I'm sure they have their reasons or whatever, but I mean, I think the FAI, if they allow that game to be refixed, it sets a very dangerous precedent for, even tonight. I was asking people afterwards, have we a title race, with Rovers losing and Derry winning? I think there's 4 points in it, albeit with a game in hand. Do Rovers decide, we'll stay over in Belgium or Sweden or Norway or something because they don't fancy a game at the weekend or something? And or even next year, like if it happens to another club, or if it's cheaper to fly back on another day, 3 days after a game or something, like you have to. I think it's, and I'm not just saying this because it benefits Dundalk. I think it would be absolute criminal if that game isn't awarded Shells. And having said that, would you trust the FAI to do that? and if not, potentially, like as things stand right now, with Pats winning that game in hand, they're ahead of us.
Yeah, you do have a point. I mean, the next couple of games, really, not to set a cat amongst the pigeons, but Reggie, like it's something a lot of people you wouldn't even think of that extra game. That Reggie's right; it will set a bad kind of precedent going forward, wouldn't it? It's kind of if they can do it, we can do it, and that's that's the danger, isn't it?
Yeah, like, and if you look back to like Dundalk and just because we have been a team in Europe, like was it ideal for us to play, say, a cup final 3 days after coming back from Russia? Like I think we definitely played Pats in a league game, albeit we had the League One 2 days after another match. We played Derry in a cup replay 2 days after the original game, and then the consequence. Okay, we won it, but the consequences of that is you go out and you play Sligo a couple of days later, and you're beaten 3-0, and all of a sudden your league title's on the line. So, it would be, if things got tight for Rovers, and look, I'm not saying they will, but like, what's to stop them saying, "No, well, sure, we'll just stay over here for another few days," and we can, and the FAI will rearrange it because, Pat's had other options to get home. They ultimately came home commercial the way any of us would fly. So why couldn't they have done that on the Thursday or Friday and still fulfill the fixture? Or, even play your under 19s if you have to, which I think Waterford had to do a couple of, was it seasons ago due to COVID or whatever. So I just think, and look, I appreciate it. It benefits me as a Dundalk fan and us as Dundalk fans, but it's a very dangerous precedent to set if you allow that game to be refixed, I think.
And just on the games, while these are on, we'll grab us for next week's match as well. So obviously we've, is it UCD? Is it next Friday night? Is it Belfield next Friday night?
Yeah.
Just throw us a couple of predictions there, lads. Just we'll throw you into the hat for next week since the boys are on the substitute bench tonight. Go on, Dave. You can go first. Hit us with it.
Well, it would depend who's back from injury. I'd like to see Paul Doyle start if he's anyway match fit. So I think that would be important. I do worry. I can't see where we're getting goals from. We can't seem to. Now, the only good thing is that UCD do tend to play football. So they're not the kind of the team that'll come and maybe set up for a 0-0 or anything like that. So it might leave gaps, and the likes of Wardy might be able to exploit it a little bit and leave a wee bit of space for Martin or Davy Mack if Hooban isn't back. So on the basis that UCD aren't a defensive side, I'm going to go with a Dundalk 1-0.
Reg?
Yeah, I think we'll do it. I think I do expect a couple back for next week. I think obviously Robbie Benson should make it, judging by what Stephen O'Donnell was saying tonight. We'll obviously have Darragh Leahy back, which I think just gives you a bit more of a natural shape, because
is it only a 1 game ban, James, for straight red?
Yeah,
for
only 1 game. So unless it's violent conduct or something, which it wasn't. So yeah, he should be fine. And look, as you say, they play a bit of football. I'll go 2-0. I think I just think we'll have enough. I think we were a bit unlucky tonight. Decisions went against us. We had good chances. Okay, we didn't take them, but I think as we slowly get back to more full strength, I think we'll capitalize. And we can't take any game for granted, obviously, but I think it's a nice one that if you've realistic European ambitions, you should be winning against the bottom team in the league, and that's what we need to do next week, and I think we will. Big one as well is obviously Pats go to Drogheda, and we all know what it's like going to Head in the Game Park, and hopefully they do us a turn as well.
Yeah, that'd be the perfect scenario. Well, since you have a 1 and a 2, I'm just going to go right now in the middle. I'm going to go 2-1 because I don't think 3-0's pushing it, because I pulled out some 3-0s and 4-0s this year, and I've been way off the mark. I haven't pulled out 4-0 since last season against Waterford, but I go for a Pingu special, and I go 2-1. And yeah, I think you're all right. I think it has the potential to be one of those sticky wickets, but after tonight, I think the boys will get down to business next week, and I think that, we might see it put to bed. Not early, but you'd like to think if they can get a run at them early. And like Dave's right, it depends who starts, who's back. But even that team tonight, you'd expect, like Reggie was saying, to go and beat the bottom team, whether at home or away. You should be looking to go out really. If you plan on doing anything in the league, that's your bread and butter is beating the team at the bottom of the league, isn't it?
And they've lost, even from earlier in the year, like Colin Whelan's out injured, Liam Kerrigan's gone abroad, even John Ryan this week went to Serie A, and they're right. We've all lost players at various points, but they're significantly weaker than they were earlier in the year. So not that you can take from granted, because they do have some great players there still. But I mean, I just think, go up there. It's almost like a home game, because there'd be even 500, 600 Dundalk fans down the road, and maybe 3 lads from UCD. So it's generally a good pitch. I know there had a few problems earlier in the year, but it's generally a good pitch. I think it'll suit us.
Yeah, absolutely perfect, lads.
Plus, we owe them for the 2-2.
No,
we definitely owe. That one where Boyler got sent off and then we conceded.
Oh, it's right. You're right. Yeah.
That still sticks in my craw. So
I thought you were. I didn't hear the start. I thought you were changing your prediction to 2-2, and I was like, no.
No. Just we owe them for that 2-2. That's
absolutely. Between them and Shelbourne this year, it used to be Bray years ago. That the team you didn't want to play was Bray, and now these two teams have really put. It's a disaster sometimes. But look,
keep 11 men on the pitch and we'll be all right.
yeah, that's the game. 1-0, 11 men would be happy enough. Look, lads, I appreciate you coming on. Thanks very much. Thanks everybody who's commented in. Congratulations to Ryan who's won his pizza. Hopefully we won't be talking next week about a 4-0. We're hoping we're going for a bit of a win. And we'll see you. Hopefully, I was going to say hopefully we'll see you next week, but if the lads are all back, but we'll get you on again over a couple of weeks. So really appreciate you coming on. So look, we'll speak to you soon, lads. All right, go on, Reggie, go on.
No, I was just going to say, if it is 2-0, they'll show up. They won't leave you with the bad result.
Of course. Everybody missed the little draws. Look, lads, appreciate it. Thanks you very much.
Go on.
No worries, guys.
Thanks, Scott. Cheers. Bye.